Hi, Nicola. We are live.
Hi, Ally. This is exciting.
Excellent. So, one thing I wanted to talk to you about is your series, Wickham Romances, because it's a UA fantasy, which is similar to what mine is. But yours came out, was it last year that you published the first book, or was it the year before?
Published the first book in March last year, and then the second book in March of this year.
Wow, so like literally apart. Are they on the same date, or are they different dates?
No, there's a couple of weeks in it, but yeah, they're released in the same month each year.
Yeah, and they're part of a core book series?
They are.
Is the next one in March next year?
Unlikely. We've hit a slight editing snag.
Oh no.
I love my parents. I'll give them a nice shout out. Doubt they're watching, but I'll give them a shout out. They help me edit my books, and my mum, bless her, she's got a new job and she's working really, really hard. My book's just sort of been put a little bit to the back of the pile, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it does mean that I'm a little bit behind where I would be, hoping to get it out. But hopefully it will come out at some point early next year.
Might be March.
Might be March. Depends.
It'll be coming out on March.
Yes. I wouldn't 100% say it's not going to come out in March, but
yeah, you're not ready to confirm the date because you want to disappoint people. You've got to wait a little bit. Need to be a bit more closer.
Yeah, build a little bit more suspense as well. Make you wonder when it's going to come out.
Oh yeah, something my 7-year-old has told me off about with these lives is I keep forgetting to tell people that if they like what they're watching, to remember to like and subscribe. And hit that bell so you get notifications. He keeps telling me, you haven't said that, Mummy. I was like, oh yeah, sorry, I will remember it next time. And then I didn't remember it next time, so I remembered it this time. You're my witness, Nicola. I did say it.
Yeah, you did say it. I will back you up with your 7-year-old.
Thank you. So for the people watching, can you tell me a little bit about what is Wickham Romances about? I know the series gives it away a little bit. The first book is called Amelia's Story.
Yes, it is. It's a series of quadruplets, which is magical enough on its own. And hell, I imagine, on the women. The poor mum. Yes, it's a magical quadruplets, and at least in the first book, they've literally just discovered their powers in like the last few weeks. So it's all accidental magical antics because no one has any control and things go wrong. But it's also, so that's sort of one side of it. They've obviously got, as with all magical books, a bit like the Voldemort story of Harry Potter. They've got a magical enemy that they fight in every book. In this case, they're the Folds family, which are also 4 children, but not quadruplets in this case. And then I also want, all got magical powers, different powers, which has been quite fun. I've got to explore lots of different magical powers. I've learned all sorts.
That was one of the things I really enjoyed about reading it, was they weren't all the same. They all had their own unique ability. That was the thing that made them special, and I really enjoyed that part of it.
But yes, I didn't want anyone to sort of have the same powers. I've got, in the second book, there are some adults that have the same powers as the younger children, but I've never put any emphasis on it. It's just, or you can refer back to these people if you need to. I don't want it to be sort of like, oh, they're the same. They're not. They're different. I just ran out of magic powers. It's not that. It's not an. You'd think there's an infinite number of list, but there isn't.
No.
So there's a little bit of overlap, but not as much. But I also wanted to make it sort of relatable to more people because I loved Hogwarts, but I was like, how many people go away to a magical school? I was like, no, mine's going to be set here. Now.
That's what I want to ask you, is when I was reading it, felt sorry, my cat's trying to gate crash our stream. She's down there. Here she is. There she is.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Not coming on. When I was reading it, it felt really real, the location, and I wondered if it was actually set in a real place. I know it felt like this world. Is it an actual real place, or is it just set in somewhere similar to real world place?
Some bits are set in the real world. So it's set in County Durham because I love it.
Is that where you?
No, I've been in south, but my grandparents lived in County Durham, and I just loved it. So that's where it's set. So like, there's mentions of like various areas in Durham mentioned on and off throughout the books. Don't think there's
a bit where Amelia's walking through the forest where she walks her dog. Yeah. Is that a real forest?
It's a little bit based on, there's a tiny wood just in my area, and it literally has a dog walking path, and when I am depressed, it's where I walk. So it's a bit like, well, I'm going to put that in my books because it means such a lot to me.
When I read it, it reminded me of a place in Felixstowe called the Grove, which is a similar small wooded area with little paths for people. Like, you don't have to have a dog to walk on them.
No, you don't have to have a dog. I said dog walking path. It's not that.
Yeah, they don't like tell you to go away when you get there. But it's
you need a dog.
You're not coming in. Like that, would you? But yeah, it's a lovely little walkway, and I pictured I really, really vividly could picture the scenes the way you described it. It just felt like I was in that little forest walking along, and I'm not going to give away what happens, but there is like a magical thing that happens.
Yeah, there is.
The romantic. And that's one of the other themes in your books. It's not just magic, isn't it? There's an underlining theme of romance going through the books. Is romance something you enjoy reading? Because that's not a big thing in Harry Potter. But
it's not. Just obviously, I loved Harry Potter as a kid. It is my childhood books, so it is mildly based on Harry Potter. But I read a lot of romantic suspense now, and when I was a kid, or in my late teens, early 20s, that's not really child, but you know, I read a lot of, like, I was in my late teens, early 20s when Twilight came out, so at what age it was aimed at. And I do love romance, and I think it's just a bit extra to the book. You want a book with lots of angles, not just one. You don't want it to be all magic. As good as Harry Potter is, it is very one track all the way through. Must defeat Voldemort, but I did wanted mine to be a bit multifaceted.
Yeah, you wanted thing going on.
Yeah,
I did enjoy the romance. It was a bit of a tiny sort of love triangle happened in there as well. What can I haven't read Sam's story yet. That's book 2, isn't it? So it's about one of the brothers. Because Amelia's the only girl in the quadrants.
Yeah, she's the only girl. So there's 3 brothers: Sam, Charlie, and Ben. So I started off with Sam, just because his story was the one that came first.
Yeah.
Although originally the girl in this one was meant to be with Charlie, but I changed my mind as you do, as a writer. You get to.
Yeah.
So I think there's a much bigger love triangle in this one, because it's actually between the brothers. So it's much more in your face that this is a real issue for them.
Okay.
But yeah, it was more fun to write as a guy, I learnt.
Oh, really?
Yes. Not that I ever thought it would be.
No, I'm not. I don't enjoy writing male perspectives. I've tried it. Like I have a few stories where I wrote like the girls' side and then another chapter with the boys' side. And I just didn't like my man voice. I just didn't think it. I didn't feel like I was able to do it genuine enough. So I ended up deleting the whole lot. I was like, no. But if you can do it well, if it is like good, like I've read I'm sure you've read Cassidy Rain's book.
Yes, I have. I've read them all. They're really good.
Was so genuine. Like,
yeah,
I got to the chapter and I didn't even need to know that it was his chapter. You just know straight away. And I think that's when you know someone's doing a good job, when you can just know the character from that little bit. So yeah, I did read her book at a hard time. I was following all the Epstein trials at the time, so there was all this, and it's a bit traffic in the book I read. I read the one and yeah. So the other day I had a little chat on Instagram with a lady called Layla Loves to Write. She usually writes Muslim romances. She was really lovely to chat to. But one of the things that did come up was Twilight, and you've just mentioned it just there. So I thought I'd give a shout out to her. And if you want to go find out about steamy romances with diversity, go check out at Layla Writes Love on Instagram. But we got in a little thing about, is it Edward or is it Jacob? Which team were you on?
I was on team Edward. I was going for a little bit of an emo phase. So brooding vampire really fits the slight emo phase. I'm not.
Me and Layla were both team Jacob at the time.
Yeah.
But in the chat, there were some people saying, no, team Edward, because there's always been a big divide. Is there any big divides like that in your book, would you say? Is there going to be anything where people might have to choose a team, or that doesn't come up in your novels?
It doesn't particularly. I didn't, as much as I enjoyed it going through the series, because I had because it was a bit multifaceted, and because each sibling gets their own book, it's a little bit hard to have something like that run through.
I really have done each book from a different character's perspective, because it's not done very often. It's something that I'm doing with my series as well. So book 1's Mariah and book 2 is going to be Keeley. What made you decide to do the different characters' stories?
When I first started writing this book, and I was 18, it was a snow week, and I had a history coursework that was supposed to be being done because it was actually due that week. Thankfully, we weren't at school. Thank you, snow week. I've never hidden the fact that I was supposed to be doing that coursework, but I do advise to anyone school age that you do your work before you.
Trouble later.
Yeah,
that one did. And now you've got all the trouble of your books, so you have to keep promoting them, not to them. You've got to keep writing them. Now you're addicted.
Yeah, I am. But yes, it's a fun addiction, but it's a lot more work than when I first went, oh yeah, I'm going to be a self-published writer. It's definitely a lot more work than that idea came in as. Yeah. As I'm sure you found out yourself, it's not as simple as I'm going to write a book.
I think it is a lot of work, but I was put off for ages doing it because I knew it was going to be a lot of work. It actually intimidated me, and I think people like you have shown me that it's possible and have given me the encouragement to do it. Otherwise, I think I would still be sitting there writing out my query letter, waiting for someone to come back and say no or yes. Which, and then even if they do say yes, and they read the whole thing and go, nah, not for me. So I just with you guys giving me the encouragement, like seeing what you guys can do, I realized that I can do that too, that it is a lot of work, but I can say yes to me right now, and I can start living my dream and doing what I want to do. And I'm so much happier now I've done it. So I'm really thankful to people like you for
that's really sweet. Yes.
Yes. I was going to say, I read Amelia's story.
Yes.
And when I was reading it, I noticed some little Easter eggs. I think that's the word that you use, hinting towards that you might be a Riverdale fan.
I loved season 1. Really, really loved season 1.
Didn't you like the opening scene in the series? Because with the redheads on the boat, like I kept like thinking, I'm not sure if I want to watch it. And then I saw that, and obviously being redheads, it drew me to it. But the person who done I think it's called cinemology, the cinematics, how it's visually looks, did an amazing job, because it was so stunning, like the stark whiteness of her in that dress looking so innocent, and the boat going out on the lake. And then I had to watch the whole season, but I must admit, as it went on through the other season, I did drop off at one point. I can't remember where it was, because it all got very complicated.
I just sort of thought, I was like, I grew up in the era of the OC and One Tree Hill and Dawson's Creek. I watched towards the end of that. So I was like, yes, new teen drama, really exciting. And I was like, by season 2 and 3, I was like, I thought One Tree Hill and the OC were unbelievable. And I just had to stop.
forgivable with Riverdale, which is why I kept watching it. Like, I think it might have been like halfway through number 3, because I know it is based on a comic book, and comic books are very dramatic.
They are.
More forgiving.
Yes, I tried. I really did. I loved season 1. I thought, oh, if they can keep this up, it's going to be really, really good. But it sort of just spiraled out of control. It was like, how many different ideas can I throw in one episode? I was like, so yes, I have to admit, there are Easter eggs through the first one, because it was actually what I was watching around the time. Yeah, and it was also quite timely. So it seemed like the right show to sort of put in, because it's what teenage girls were watching.
Yeah.
I don't know if they still are. I've lost contact with teenage girls.
What are you watching now?
I've moved back to I sort of went away a bit from crime dramas, which is what I was watching until Riverdale. And then I've sort of gone back because they are sort of my first love, as people say. So,
will you write a crime drama one day?
I will. It is being planned. Yeah. I've got like a few bits of ideas for characters and storylines written.
I'm guessing being a crime, there will not be magic in that one, but would there be romance?
There will. I'm sort of aiming it in between two genres, so sort of the crime thriller and the romantic suspense.
Yeah.
I'm sort of hoping it sort of hits that in between bit.
Yeah.
So, I started doing the research for that. So I've got a friend who I've literally now known 25 years. So big shout out to him. His name is Rory Price. He teaches. He's been my go-to person for Ben's story. I don't want to say how many times I've literally messaged him a question over the last 6 months. I feel like
acknowledgements.
Yeah, he's in the acknowledgements, but I've known him forever, thankfully, because it did mean he doesn't get annoyed at all my questions. But he has helped me out even on this new book very briefly to help me get my murder scene right, which is very strange, but he did know the answer to my one question about my sort of first murder.
Dare I ask how he knows about murder? Is he crime, or is he done crime at uni?
No, nothing like that. He was an engineer and now he's a guitar teacher, and he's very, very good. If you live in the Northampton or Bedfordshire area, his teaches under Guitar Ninja. So if you're interested, don't know if he has spaces, but he is wonderful and he does a lot online at the minute. So I'll give a big shout out to him, because God knows how much. Yeah. But yes, I wanted. It's going to be a very graphic first murder scene, because I want to make a bit of a splash. And I wanted to use a wire to strangle and basically cut my head off. And I couldn't think what I wanted, and then I came up with guitar strings and I went back to him.
I see now how he is the expert. He might look at that guitar.
I was like, what guitar string can I garrot someone with? He was just like, I was like, you've gone from guitar lessons to this. But he did answer. I'm not going to give it away.
No.
Because I want everyone to be a bit surprised, but I can assure you there is a garroting in my first crime thriller.
Yeah. Did you have to do a lot of research for Wiccan romances as well, or was it all quite naturally came to you?
No, the actual writing came quite naturally, but I am a big believer in research. Because I studied law at university and I went into a legal career first, there's a lot of background research involved in anything you do there. So it just, out of natural habit, before I write, I do loads of research, and there's usually, or at least there is for the Wiccan Romances series, there's like one of those big lever arch files rammed full of research.
That's what I was going to ask. How do you organise all that research? So you do print it out and manually like to organise it?
Yes, and then because then I can sort of highlight bits, and if I accidentally close the browser, it's not the end of the world, because I do find that sometimes you click through on links of things if you're doing lots of research, as I'm sure you do, where you go off on a tangent and you find something. And
the rabbit hole.
Yes, that rabbit hole. we've all been there. But I found early on I'd accidentally closed tabs, and I just wouldn't be able to find what I was looking for again.
Yeah.
So I was like,
the screenshots where I've been like, I need to save that, and I'm worried I'll lose the web page. I'll screenshot it, so that I'm pretty sure that when it says that my memory's full on my phone, that is screenshots.
Yeah. So I do print it. I have a deal with my parents that I provide the paper and they provide the ink for our printer.
Good.
Yeah. So I usually buy paper in bulk, and just sort of they tell me when they need more, and it all works.
Okay. Have you got any tips for other people that are writing?
I do like to plot, and I know a lot of people don't, but I do find it really handy when you're sat there and you're like, don't know what I'm doing. If you've just got something, even just a basic outline that's a few bullet points, you can just go, oh yeah, that's what I was thinking 6 months ago that I told myself I'd remember and never do.
Also, I guess if you get stuck with an outline, you can jump ahead a little bit and then come back and fill in that bit, because the whole path, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. So I have been able to do that a lot when I get writer's block. I sometimes sort of wait and see if I can re-inspire myself with Charmed or something along those lines.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I did an interview with you on my blog, and you mentioned about how Charmed was one of the things that did inspire Wiccan romances. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was the the magic bit, because for sort of early 2000s TV show, the special effects were really, really good.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, they still stand up today if you watch it. They're not as good, but they still stand up. I watch it quite regularly, as you can tell. So the magic element, obviously, but then there's so many things with magic in Harry Potter, Twilight, that I can refer back to. But like the family element of the three sisters doing it, I was like, that's what really sort of
four sisters, because didn't one die and then another one came in, like a half sister, so almost quadlets there.
Yeah, almost. But yes, just sort of that family element of them doing it all together. So obviously I made them younger. I've obviously seen Charm their late 20s, early 30s throughout the series, and sort of
because when you were writing it, you were that age as well.
Yes, when I first planned it, I was 18, so they were 16 when I was 18.
Yeah.
But admittedly, I finished it when I was 28, so it was a decade of my life.
Right. Mine as well. I hadn't realised that was the same for you as well. That's really interesting to know. We've got something to connect over again. Another thing.
Yes.
So with Amelia, with all of them, are any of them the characters based on real people?
Yes, they are. So obviously there's a lot of Rory and Ben. That's very obvious at this point.
Answer questions.
Yes, and actually, to be fair, although Ben does it a lot younger, it is effectively exactly what Rory did.
Okay.
Which to be fair, his story did inspire that bit of the book.
Okay.
So, to be fair, it is based. And then other mates have just sort of come in. I had a lot of male mates, which is why obviously it was quite fun for me to write the male perspective.
Maybe that's out a bit because you've got that personal interaction.
all that sports banter comes out.
Yeah.
That I have no idea I have in my head, but it comes out.
Because you've heard it so much, so it's already in there.
Well, yeah, so I must have experienced so much of it. So I have quite a lot of male mates. So there's odd bits of all of them in all the characters. Charlie's probably the least based on anyone I actually know, but he's based on it's based on a story that my dad told me about one of his graduates. So my dad's a director of engineering at Lockheed Martin, and he just told me this story, and it stuck with me. And whilst Charlie's nowhere near like this person, he was sort of the inspiration for Charlie. So it's not someone I know. It was a random dinner time story that led to something else, but that's probably how it's probably makes it a bit better, because it made him probably the most different out of all the characters.
Yeah.
But I will say he was blooming hard to write as well.
Yeah, because you couldn't interview him like you could Rory.
No. Yes, I did a lot of research into him.
So all the characters have different powers. Which power would you most like to have?
I think I'm torn between the invisibility power that Katie Folds has, because sometimes it would be really nice just to be invisible and sort of go about your business without everyone asking you questions. And also I really like Sam's power of fire. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
So, I think those two are my favourite.
So I think we have covered everything I wanted to discuss with you on this live. Let me just check. I wrote some notes about things I was going to ask you about, so I'm just going
to No worries.
Oh, that was it. I was going to ask you about, obviously Wiccan Romance is set in the real world. Was there any challenges or obstacles about putting magic in the real world? Like, what things do we have to watch out for if it did come out, or difficulties with writing it?
I think it's obviously a little bit challenging because it's not something that we all see.
Yeah. So it's how to keep it.
Yeah, you sort of have to keep it like, you don't want someone setting fire to the school cafeteria accidentally, because that's just not real, but sort of like accidentally, knocking a few things off a desk with telekinesis is borderline. You can sort of write it in and hide it a bit by sort of, or you can let your character hide it a bit by going, oh God, I'm so clumsy. Yeah. And things like that. You can sort of work around it. But I think only Amelia's has a lot of scenes in school. So in that respect, it was quite easy. A lot of it's set sort of in like Amelia, Sam, Charlie and Ben's house. So obviously magic is widely accepted there. Yeah. So sort of mortals in the house, at which point they're not supposed to use magic, but they're teenagers and it's new. So there is odd bits. So yeah, it wasn't too challenging. I think if I'd really wanted to set it more in school, it would have been a bigger challenge. Mm-hmm. But whilst I did sort of have them doing their A-levels, it was very much sort of like they're studying. Yes, they've been to school and they've come home. It wasn't too hard. So I think the hardest bit was when I had them in Sam's story, they go on holiday. Oh my. It's quite fun. And there's a clash between the two families, and I had it sort of on a public street, and it was sort of how I handled that was a little bit questionable. Yeah. It's a public street, so it's a little, you have to suspend your belief a little bit, but it's not not too serious. There was nothing too outlandish. So.
Cool. It was something. What was it? It was about the. Oh, didn't you when you? I literally was there, and I was like, just wait for it to finish speaking, and then you can ask questions.
I know what you mean. It happens.
Yeah, it was something about characters. I can't think what it was. It's gone now.
Yeah.
So what are you working on at the moment? What's your current writing project?
I've got technically 3 on the go at the moment.
Okay.
So Charlie's story is in the editing process.
Is that book 3?
Yeah, that's book 3. So that's actually with my mum at the minute, but it will come back to me. I'm very, very close to finishing Ben's, which I'm very excited about because it will mark the end of probably nearly 15 years of my life. It's a little bit scary.
That is quite
I know it worked out, but it has
a nice ending at the end of the whole series.
Yes, it does have a nice ending. So
and I do remember now what my question was. It was going to be, do you know what's going to happen in the other books? Which obviously you do.
I do know what's going to happen in the other books because they're virtually finished.
That's really good.
So it's virtually finished, the Wickham Romances series. And then I've just started the plotting for this new crime thriller romantic book that I'm trying to write.
Is that going to be a standalone or will that be a series as well?
It's a 2-book series, this one. But they are based, I will say, they are based around a very small bank.
Okay. Is that based somewhere that we know, or is it a made-up location? It is somewhere you know.
Oh, it's not somewhere I know, but it's the bank. It's got a different name, but I know the bank. I used to work.
Oh, you used to work
there? Yeah, I used to work there. So some of the calls are based on reality. They are not real. They are completely made up, but some of them do have very real conversations behind them.
Yeah, so people who worked at the bank might be able to relate to the nature of those calls.
Yes, actually, to be fair, if you worked in any customer service, you'll be able to relate to a couple of the calls, to be fair. I've made sure I've put in stuff that people can relate to, my cat took my credit card, or the dog took my credit card, and now I can't find it. Those things that everyone can relate to, and up until the very eccentric calls that you also get that leave you questioning human behaviour. Yes, cool. I'm quite excited to start that now. So hopefully,
yeah, it's completely different, isn't it, from what you've been working on for the last 15 years? It'll be fresh and new.
Yes, it will, and it just it's nice to move away from magic because when I was young, I absolutely adored magical books. I have to admit, now that I'm a bit older, I find them a bit harder to read.
So your taste is just
yeah, I still like to read some, but I do have to admit I am less inclined to read them now. More likely say that it's a romantic suspense. I'll probably pick it up in about 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's your thing. Yeah. Is there anything you're reading at the moment?
I'm reading a series by Mary Burton, but I have picked up a few via Twitter, some recommendations for some indie romantic suspense or crime novels. I can't remember any of the names off the top of my head. They're all on my Kindle in the other room. But I do review
books. Is that where you usually get recommendations?
Yeah, I like Twitter because whilst there are more horrible people, more questionable people on Twitter than I found on others. And people are surprisingly more open on Twitter.
Maybe it's because it's just it doesn't feel as personal. People just say what they think, and that's just it.
Yeah, but I do find the hashtag writing community is very supportive, and if you go, oh, I'm looking for sort of this sort of book, all of a sudden you've got like 50 recommendations.
Not sure.
Yeah. But I can promise if you do write, most genres I'll read, apart from I'm not great with sci-fi and Dysapiton. That's not yeah. I'm not great with those books, but anything else I will read and I will review on my website as well.
Yeah, the only ones I'm not with sci-fi is I don't know what it is, but when a book's set in space, it kind of creeps me out. I don't know. There's like a thing, isn't there? People who don't like small spaces. I wonder if I'm one of those people who doesn't like lots of space. There's like the universe is terrifying. Don't you with space everywhere?
I find it a little. I just find it so hard to suspend belief that far with some of it. And you like robots have taken over the world. I'm like,
oh no, I like that. I've been watching Humans on Netflix. You should check it out. It's really good.
Yeah, really. I will. I'll add it to my list.
Yay! Then you can know if you like it. It is quite serious, so I think you'll enjoy it. Well, we're talking about book recommendations. Let me just check the name of the book. I was going to mention it because it's coming out on the same day as my book, on the 1st of December. And it is Indie Writing Wisdom. So what it is like a group of indie authors, like lots of different people, have all come together and written a chapter in the book. So one of the indie authors I know that is in the book is Michelle Raab, and she's written a chapter on marketing, which obviously is going to be great for lots of indies. So it's all like little like chapters on different things to help indie authors with their careers and different aspects of the whole indie publishing thing. So if you are interested in becoming an indie author, not you obviously, Nicola, because you already are, but if anyone is interested, that's one worth checking out. It's coming out on the 1st December. And while we're talking about the 1st December, that's when my book Ocean Heart comes out, Ally Aldridge. So you can pre-order it now. It's on most sites, so like it's on Amazon. You can order it from your bookshop. You can get it on ebook. You can get it on paperback. So there's lots of options if you are interested in buying it. And also come to the launch party on the 1st December, where we will be talking all about it, and I will do my giveaway. So that will be lots of fun. You're going to come back and join me again then, aren't you, Nicola?
I am. I'm very excited
today.
No worries. I've enjoyed it.
Yay! So we can do it again in 2 weeks' time. It's going to come around really fast. It's like you probably been through this yourself with book launches, like how it feels like forever it's going to happen, and then suddenly it is.
You sort of build up, and all of a sudden you're like, it's 1 week to go, and you're like, hang on, I had like a month left a day ago.
Yes. Especially when you spent 10 years writing it, it's like But I'm so
Well, thank you so much for letting me do this.
Thanks so much for joining me, and we'll do it again in 2 weeks' time. So I'm going to end the broadcast now. So just say bye, everyone. Bye. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Okay, take care. Bye.